Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Meepleville Meets. Today we have such a wonderful guest. We have somebody who is in entertainment in all different aspects. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that, which is very exciting. But we're so honored to have the creator of the sketch comedy series Things Get Dicey. Please welcome Paula Deming. Hello, Paula.
Hi, Tim. How are you? Hi, everyone who is watching this.
Several weeks from now, yeah.
Yes, whatever it may be, whatever time you currently live in. Oh, I'm crashing and burning, and we've just started.
No. So I'm really excited to have you, Paula, and thank you for joining us. This is really good because you have so much knowledge and depth and breadth in the entertainment industry. So it's going to be really helpful for me and the audience to learn about a lot of this stuff. So I want to go ahead and start out with your series, Things Get Dicey.
Yeah.
Now, folks, if you haven't seen it, please go to the YouTube channel and check it out. Let me go ahead and put that up here, actually. And what that is it's a sketch comedy series, and it's so refreshing because Paula does these little vignettes, little sketches, all involved with board gaming and stuff. So my main question to you is, I'd like to talk about that, is that's got to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because it's well written, well produced, well filmed, well edited, the whole gamut.
Thank you.
So just do me a favor and let's talk about the process. So let's talk about, if you can, like from the idea, and let's go through like the whole process of putting a sketch together.
Sure. Yeah. It is. It's a lot of work. I think it's more work than a lot of people realize that it is. So to start off with, first I have to, sometimes it varies from sketch to sketch, but sometimes the most amount of work just comes in trying to come up with the idea for the sketch. Sometimes it's like, wow, I don't know, what are we going to do for this next video? So first I come up with an idea, and it's usually some vague thing that I think is like a joke. Wouldn't it be funny if maybe we had a game and, I don't know, the game talked to us? And then we're like, okay, well, then what? And trying to expand on what is the joke, and how do we, based on my particular style of comedy training, I really try to hit the joke 3 times and heighten it each time. That is not always the structure that we follow, but it's a sketch comedy structure that kind of guides the way I try to write my episodes. So once we kind of have that idea, and then it's just like sitting down and trying to write it, and that can take, some days writing is easier than other days. So from idea to getting a script written, just first pass, my idea is vomited out onto the page. Then I usually go to my partner, Lawson, who helps make the series with me. He directs the episodes. He does all the cinematography. I'll go to him, and I'll go to some other friends who I trust, who have similar comedic sensibilities to me. And I'll be like, hey, can you look at this script and see, like, does it make sense? Are the jokes landing? Is anything unclear? I know I want to do some sort of something here, but I don't know what it is. Do you have any thoughts or ideas? And then kind of get feedback from that, do another pass on the script, so we might do 2 or 3 versions on the script before we even start to think about shooting it.
Okay. So
that is, yeah.
Okay, so no, I'm sorry. I want you to keep going.
No,
I just want to stop you real quick to interject there. So this is one of the things I've always wondered, right? So you have your idea. You've said you've done 1 or 2 passes. You've had Lawson. You've had friends. You've had other people give you input. But how married or committed do you get to the idea before you say, you know what, this may not be good? Or do you commit and keep following through?
It really varies. That's such a great question. It depends on how confident I really am in the idea. So if I have an idea and I'm like, this is going to be really fun, I really want to do this joke. And sometimes, maybe Lawson goes, I don't really think this is that funny of an idea. I think maybe we should do something else. And I go, no, I really want to do this. Then I'll like really like commit to it until we figure out how to make it work. And sometimes I go, hey, I think there's an idea in this. Like, what do you think? And I might write a couple versions of the script. I have some scripts we wrote a year ago that we still haven't actually made into an episode because they still aren't quite working. And it's not worth, like when I had the idea, I thought it was a brilliant idea. And then once you start writing it, you're like, actually, this isn't that good. And I'm not sure how to make it good yet. So I'm just going to let the third version of the script sit for a while. And maybe one day I'll come back to it and have figured out how to actually make it funny. Uh-huh. So it really depends. And then sometimes, so we did a video in this past season of the show about the different styles of doing a rules teach for a board game. And I had a script written and we sat down that day to shoot it. And we started talking before we ever rolled the camera. We started talking about it, came up with a new way to approach the idea and completely rewrote the script that morning before we started shooting, which is not something I would like to do all the time, because it was stressful, but it was a better idea. And so I felt like we had to follow through on it because it was a better way to approach the sketch. So we just kind of like frantically rewrote the whole thing and kind of rewrote it as we were shooting it. And so in that case, we weren't married to it at all, because as we were shooting, we came up with totally new ideas for how to actually do the sketch. And I think made the video overall a lot better and a lot more fun than what the original idea had been that I had already written 2 or 3 versions of the script for.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
No, that's very good. And then also because like in the entertainment business, whether it's music or writing or certain things, a lot of times people are very fortunate where they're able to catch lightning in a bottle, right? So in your experience, do you think the better vignettes, sketches or whatever come sort of organically, like lightning from a bottle, like instantly thought, or are the ones that are really, really, really vetted out and take the process? I mean, I'm sure it's a mixture of both, but from you personally, which do you maybe prefer, or which do you have found maybe come out better?
That's such a great question. I mean, this is another kind of wishy-washy answer. I really think it's a mixture of both. Like sometimes you get an idea and it just like, you spit it out on the page and you're like, this is good. This is the thing. Let's do it. It's going to be so easy and it does really well and you're really happy with it. And sometimes they are a lot more work to find. And in the end, you're still super happy with how it turned out. And you're glad that you spent the extra time to really figure out how to make it work. So it really depends. I will say, this is semi-related to that often the sketches that I work the hardest on and am the most proud of are not the ones that do as well in terms of people who are watching them getting excited. So some of my most successful, if we're defining success by view numbers, which is not necessarily what you should be doing, but my most like viewed videos are sometimes the ones where I was like, I don't know, let's just throw this together and maybe no one will like this one, but we got an episode out and then like it does really well and you're like, oh, cool. But what about that one we spent 2 days shooting?
Yeah, but I think I think that's sort of like a general thing with just human nature, right? Because you go back to that old saying about like, a horse. A horse, once you get on it, will know right away whether you know how to ride it or not. And I think the audience can feel genuineness or realness, and maybe perhaps that is why they can relate more to something that maybe is more spontaneous, maybe more improv than something totally scripted out.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. So you got your script, right? You've got your ideas and all that kind of stuff. You've gone through 1 or 2 passes, as you say. You've got it. You've committed to it. What's the next step?
So the next step is then figuring out when we're going to shoot the video. So again, my partner Lawson, who shoots all the videos for me and directs them and makes everything look good, has a full-time job. So we are usually trying to find a Saturday or a Sunday to shoot our videos on. So we have to figure, okay, what weekend can we do this? When can we fit this in? So that's the first big next step. Excuse me. And then after that, it's like really going through and be like, okay, what props do we need? What kind of wardrobe do I need? Do we need to rent a specific kind of equipment to pull off, this joke, the specific sequence that we want to shoot that needs to look a certain way? Do I need to make any props? Do I need to make a fake game box? Do I need to, what are all of the things that we need to actually make these ideas real? Because I have a habit of, as a writer, writing a bunch of things I can sort of see in my head, but having no actual idea on how to execute them, actually in real life. So Lawson's usually the one who goes, okay, but how are we going to, a robot's going to attack? Okay, how though? And you're like, oh yeah, you got to make a robot.
Right.
Puppet it? Make it attack? Do CGI? I don't know, so that's the next step in conversations of, okay, how practical is this? How do we achieve it? How do we gather all the props in the wardrobe? When are we shooting it? Those things. And then usually the very last thing that I do before we actually shoot is learn the lines, which is not how I approach any other acting job.
Right. That's pretty important though, right?
I always get to set and I'm like, I don't even know what my lines are. We start shooting and it's like, what scene are we doing? Okay, let me look. It's probably like how they are in a soap opera where you get a new script every day. I'm just like, what are the, okay, here we go. I hope I know it.
You don't have that person over there. You can just go line and they go ahead.
Oh gosh. Especially not this season when we've had to shoot it just the two of us. Yeah. In the past, we've been able to have a friend come over and help, but
right.
because we're all isolating, that's affected some things.
Yes, it has. It's affected everybody. So, okay, so you're in the shooting process, and all that kind of stuff, because you've got, and again, a little bit before we get there, how elaborate do you get? Do you have a storyboard? Do you have all this kind of stuff? Or is it basically from the script, let's start shooting?
It's mostly from the script. We go from there. There might be a couple little things. If something's particularly visual or complicated, we might sort of sketch it out to figure out how it's going to look. But for the most part, we go from the script, and Lawson really sits, and he's a cinematographer, so he really sits and thinks about how he's going to shoot it, how he wants it to look. It kind of lives in his head a little bit. And then he will tell me kind of okay, here's the plan. Here's how I want to set this up. Here's what we're going to do. And then we'll do that section. And he normally does that, pulling it just from the script. Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you, because since you are both professionals in the field, are you able to film and stuff out of order? Because somebody like me, right, would have to just go from beginning to end because I can't think that far ahead. Do you guys do that and do a lot of the work in post-production? Or
yeah. Okay. Yeah, we do. So we basically shoot based on, okay, well, we need to be, some of the sketch is going to be around the dining room table. We shoot a lot of our stuff at the dining room table. And so, okay, what is our setup here? So let's shoot. So we have the light set for this particular angle. Let's shoot everything that needs to happen from this angle. So you're jumping all over in the script. And then you go, okay, now we're going to move to over here. What are all of the things that need to happen from this angle? Because that way we're saving time in terms of, if you're setting up lights for this, and then you're okay, chronologically, the next thing's over here, and you have to take down the lights, move them, set them back up, shoot over here, and then go back to over here, that would take so much more time. So based on that, we shoot things out of order, just based on what's convenient for having the actual set ready. And so it's really means we have to pay attention to the script, mark off what we've gotten, what we still need to do, and constantly go back and check, because we have had a few instances where we've wrapped for the day, all the equipment's put away, and then I go, oh no, we didn't shoot XYZ thing. And we're like, oh no.
Oh, that's gotta be a not good feeling.
Yeah. So, especially when it's been like a 10-hour day and you're
Right.
tired and you've just put everything away and you're like, oh, God.
Yeah.
Okay, do we need it? Can we work around it? How do we?
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
so good. So so let's say, you've gone through the process, you filmed it, you've gotten it,
Mhm.
you put it up. Now,
Mhm.
you have a whole bunch of videos on your site, and as you said, you see different reactions from perhaps
Yeah.
this or this.
Mhm.
Now, moving to the next episode, are your
Yeah.
decisions maybe made on where the audience is more receptive, or is it more different
Hmm.
ideas? Like, how do you determine what direction you may go in, depending or based on what you have already shot and filmed?
Great. That's a great question. It's mostly just on what I think will be a fun idea. What I have like inspiration for wanting to make a joke about. And I mostly think more of like, okay, I want to do this kind of a joke, but it's kind of similar to something we did 2 sketches ago. So we probably shouldn't do that next. Let's do something else. And then we can come back to that later when there's more episodes like in between. I don't really, no offense to the people who watch the videos, I don't really take the view numbers into too much account when thinking of what to shoot next, because people are fickle, and just because they liked something one time doesn't mean they'll like it the next time,
No,
if
no,
that
no.
makes sense. So
It makes perfect sense, and I agree
mhm.
with you. However, but in Hollywood, I mean, in TV production, all that kind of stuff, even just a layperson like me knows that
Yeah.
things are based on ratings, whether or not they
Yes.
continue filming and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying. You don't want to base it on that, but you sort of have to in a little bit. Yes. I mean,
um I mean, sure, yeah, I think yes, to an extent you do. Like if I made something and it was in a particular style and I was like, I really want to make more in this style, and like people didn't like it and no one watched it and there were a lot of comments about people not really being into it, I would probably not continue to make something in that style. But in terms of just what kind of joke am I going to do next in my next video, I mean, it really is so subjective, and some people are going to like one thing and some people aren't going to like another thing. Um, that I try not to think about that too much. Now, that being said, I did. So in my first season, was it first season or second? Second season? Seasons. It's a bit arbitrary. So I did a musical parody, and it went over really well. People really liked it. And so I was like, well, we should do another one. And I want to do probably one every season of videos that we do. One, because I really like doing musical parodies and people like them. So I did use that as a reason to do a second one. And so I guess in that sense, yes, I did take that into account. I was like, this was really fun to do and people seem to like it, so I should do this again. So
and
yes, in that sense.
okay. And what was the feedback? Like, what was the response? Was it true that they did respond the same way again?
Well, this one didn't do as well as the first
Uh-oh,
one.
there's a well.
So I think, though, there are reasons for that. The reasons are
Uh-huh.
the song I chose is less well known
Okay.
for the parody. So that is going to immediately draw less people in to watching it, because the first one was a Little Mermaid song, which I think a lot more people know. And the second one was a parody of a song from Hercules, which I don't think people know as well. And so that might be, some of we can get into all kinds of stuff. Why else did people not, and less people click on it? Could be maybe the thumbnail wasn't as effective. Maybe the way I titled it didn't catch people in exactly the right way. Maybe, there's any number, and this is why I'm like, don't put too much stock into it, because a lot of it is the algorithm on YouTube specifically. If something doesn't hit in a certain amount of time from when you first posted it, it's going to get shown to less people. If the board game Reddit doesn't, get excited about it, you're going to get less views. If this person didn't see it and so then they didn't retweet it, less people are now going to see it. So many different factors can go into how well received a video is. And really, So that's why I try not to use the view numbers too much in terms of deciding like, did this work or did this not work? If that makes sense.
I'm glad you pointed that stuff out, because a lot of people don't realize that, all this stuff isn't overnight success or getting to where you are. That everything, even like we're talking about the filming, your training and all that kind of stuff, put that aside. Now you have to go to the part of just dealing with YouTube and how they work.
Yes. And beyond that, dealing with the comments that get left on your YouTube videos, like all of that, that's its whole own beast.
Yes, really. It is. Yes, it is. So yeah. So good. Yeah, it's so folks, please go check out Things Get Dicey. It's absolutely refreshing because it's different. As far as something you may be used to about watching reviews, how to plays, all these kind of stuff. It's completely different. So it's really refreshing. So highly recommend you checking that out. But now I want to get to your journey getting to this point. So I read, if I'm not mistaken, you're from North Carolina.
I am.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm from North Carolina. I've been in Los Angeles about 10 years, 10 and a half years now.
Okay, so what was it like growing up in North Carolina for you? Because it's funny because, I'm from Connecticut, and every time people say back east, like in my mind, it's just like New England is back east.
And I think about North Carolina, but I don't think, if you're not from North Carolina, you're not thinking North Carolina when people say East Coast, they don't mean the South. They really don't. But but I'm on the East Coast. I'm East Coast. But it's not what people mean.
Yeah. So what was it like for you? What was like Paula's life growing up? Did you have a good life? Did you live in the country, the city? What was all that about?
Well, I grew up in some of the larger cities of North Carolina. So, I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. My dad was in grad school at LSU. I don't know why I couldn't remember that for a second. I was like, oh my gosh. Then we moved to Ohio. Then we moved to North Carolina. I was 3. I'm just giving you my whole life story. I was 3 when we moved to North Carolina, so I do not remember Louisiana or Ohio. But so I started growing up in Raleigh, which is the capital. So it's one of the bigger cities. And then we moved to Charlotte. So I mostly grew up in Charlotte. And, we're in the suburbs of, but it wasn't, to me, it's not what I think of when I think of the country, especially having driven through other parts of North Carolina.
Oh, yeah, imagine.
We were very much suburbs. You drive 25 minutes, you are downtown, or in Charlotte, they like to call it uptown because we want to make it seem like it's a classy place to be. There's a skyline of sorts. And so I think I had probably a pretty normal suburban type upbringing.
Okay, so when you say normal, I want to ask you, because again, I'm from New England, so my whole mindset is up north, and then you hear you grow up with these, I don't know whether you want to call them stereotypes or certain things about the South, but were you like a Southern belle or like
no?
But I mean, is that true? Again, I don't know. Is there a way that women are perceived or expected to act or grow up in the South? And again, that may be stupid for me thinking that, but
it's not stupid. No, and I think one of the reasons is so I grew up in North Carolina, which is South, but it's not deep South. Okay. So I think for me, I associate some of those things that you're talking about when it comes to like a Southern Bells or a cotillion or, that sort of thing, your grandma's silver pattern getting passed down to you is much more to me something I associate with the deep South. So more like Alabama. And I do have family in Alabama. So I grew up every summer spending like 2 or 3 weeks in Alabama because both sets of grandparents lived there. I had cousins there. So I grew up swimming in the Gulf of Mexico as opposed to we didn't go to Myrtle Beach for the beach. We went down to Gulf Shores in Alabama with my family. But in terms of some of those more well, I do declare kind of Southern stereotypes.
That's what I'm
really
North
about, Carolina. Right? I feel like North Carolina is a little more. I don't want to say hick. I mean, we're not. Look, I'm going to offend a bunch of people now. We're not Kentucky, but
all the Kentucky people watching. Yeah,
we got slightly harder edges, maybe. But North Carolina's cool because it's a state that has a lot of things in it. You know, on one end you have the coast, on the other end you have the mountains, and you can't be in them both at the same time like you can in California, but
Right.
But in one state has all the things, and I think that's really cool. And I mean, North Carolina is beautiful. It's very green. There is like you're in a city, and then if you want to drive to the next city, you are going to drive through the country to get to the next city. But no, I didn't feel, any kind of pressure to be like a well-behaved Southern lady or anything like that growing up. I like to get dirty and climb trees, and I like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and
there you go.
stuff like that.
At what point of growing up did you or did you ever like say, wow, I want to be an entertainer, or you got drawn into that field? Because then you led into college, and I'd like to know, if you studied that. But was there a point in your life that you said, this is what Paula wants to become?
I always loved acting for a while. So the first thing I told people I wanted to be when I grew up was a clown. And sometimes I look back on that, I'm like, I guess that sort of came true in a way.
Let me stop you there, because I'm just going to, sorry, I know this is about you, but I just want to interject real quick. So I am a professionally trained clown.
You are?
Yes,
That's so awesome.
Yes, I used to work. I used to be a clown doctor, actually, at Miami Children's Hospital. I got trained with the Big Apple Circus and all that kind of stuff. Did improv, did a whole bunch of training. But I just want you to know that. So be careful what you say.
Be careful. But I mean, like when I was a kid, I was like 5 years old, and I'm thinking like circus clown, and I don't know, it just seems like such a silly thing. Now I think of how I think of clowning now, I think of very differently. I've done some commedia dell'arte classes, and I have a friend who taught some clowning classes, and it's a thing that I would love to do more of now, like just as a performer. It does, to be honest, it scares me a little bit. And maybe it's just that the style of clowning, I have some friends who do, and it feels very vulnerable.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's absolutely amazing. And it's a thing that I would love to do more of.
Oh no, absolutely.
It's, but now I think of it now different. I think of it now as like, theatrical clowning and whatever. And for some reason I do associate that a little differently from me being like 5 and being like, I'm gonna look like Bozo and I don't know, run around and
there is a huge difference. I'd love to talk to you more about that sometime, because that's a big passion of mine.
Yes,
it's not a part of my life anymore, but it was a big part for a while. So so you wanted to be a clown growing up, but you always had this sort of entertainer actor bug. So where did that come from, and then how did you develop that?
I just I very quickly was like, oh, I won't be a clown, I'll be a teacher, which felt like maybe that is a very like Southern thing to be like, I'm a girl, I'll grow up and be a teacher. I don't know, because I didn't grow up anywhere that wasn't where I'm from, so I don't know what it was like anywhere else. But I just always was very active with my imagination, just always. I was always acting things out. I was always playing pretend. I was always thinking about wanting to be in movies or TV shows or, books. I mean, I used to like watch a movie, and then after we'd watch the movie, I'd want to act it out with my friends. I'd be like, well, now let's act out this movie. I mean, we did that all the time. And I never really, for a long time, I didn't really think it was something I could actually do. I just knew it was something that I loved, and I kept thinking, well, I'll do other things that are sort of like this. Maybe I'll be an author. Maybe I'll go into advertising. Maybe I'll whatever. And I did. I took some theater classes as a kid, and in middle school and high school, I got really into like school plays. So I did a ton of school plays and just really loved that, but really thought like, this isn't gonna be for me as a career. Like, I need stability. I don't want to be a starving artist. No, thank you.
Right, but let me just stop you real quick. So you may have had those thoughts, right? Because of course, sometimes you gotta, slap yourself in the face with cold reality and stuff. But what was your home life like? Like, I don't know if you had both parents or whatever, but did your parents, whether it's one or two, whatever, like, were they encouraging, or like, did they say, hey, that's something you can't do? How was that? Like, what was, your did they ever put like, you know what I mean? Like, what was that like?
They were actually really encouraging.
Okay.
I feel really, really lucky. I have a really good relationship with my parents, and they are like, how do I word this in a way that doesn't sound like an insult? I'm like, they're semi-creative. Like, they both have their own like creative inclinations. My dad can like sort of draw, and I'm trying to, I don't know how I feel bad. I'm like, how is my mom creative? I don't know. I'm thinking about, she's a very like, she used to be a med tech. So that doesn't feel very creative to me, but that's a certain kind of, you know, skill set that I don't have. But they always were encouraging to me in what I wanted to do, even in the moments where they were like, are you sure though? Maybe you could learn something about computers. You're real smart. And I'd went, well, I mean, I could, but I'd rather do this. And they'd be like, okay, you know.
Right.
I knew that they wanted what was best for me, and they wanted something that would feel stable and successful, but they never told me I couldn't do the things I wanted to do. But I think I also like, I projected maybe onto them a little bit of like, well, I can't major in theater in college because I don't know if my parents would be cool with that. Now, I don't know because I never asked them. They never told me not to. But I was like, I should do something more practical, though. I just should, because that'll make them happy.
I know. Isn't that like a battle that entertainers especially have, right? You always have that, hey, this is my passion, this is my love, this is what I want to do, but I do need to be practical. You know, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, it is tough.
You cross that line, right, and go fully into the other side. But before we get to that question, because you did make that decision, what were you best at, or what did you love most in the entertainment field? So so this could be two different answers, right? Because you may have loved something but weren't very good at it.
Right.
You know, so.
Right. In terms of just the entertainment field, like just performing, I think. And I did that in a number of different ways. You know, like I was in the band. So I did marching band and concert band. And so that's a certain kind of performance. I tried my hand at photography, which isn't really performance, but that's a creative outlet. I was not super great at that. I'm not very good at drawing, but I like it. But mostly acting. And I felt like I was good at it. Looking back, I was probably fine. But it was acting is the thing that I really loved and felt confident in my ability to do. Yeah. And there's something about like, I could get up in front of an audience of people and do a monologue, and that's no problem. I have no problem with that. Public speaking doesn't scare me. Singing makes me more nervous though. So if I need to be in a musical and I have a solo to sing, that might not go so well because I'll get nervous about that. So I guess those are like, but I love musicals. So I guess that's a good example of like, I love musicals. I love being in musicals. I am not the strongest singer. I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine, but I'm not going to be on Broadway. Like I'm just.
You are a good singer, though. You've done a couple of sketches I've seen that you do sing, and they're lovely. You do have a nice voice. It's very good. Okay, so what did you major in college then?
I majored in communication with a concentration in electronic media broadcasting.
Okay, so with that, did you even say that was the practical side? Okay.
It wasn't even that practical, really, but it was my practical.
I know, because that's what I majored in. I mean, I didn't finish college because I partied too much, unfortunately. But I did go to school for communications, and that is kind of a catch-all degree. But what I mean is, the practical side. Did you want to be in front with media or behind?
Yeah, so I thought at first I would go into advertising. Okay. And then I realized that the actual advertising major was more about like pitching ideas about what the ad should be. And I realized as I went along that I wanted to actually be making the ads. I wanted to be behind the camera doing actual production. So that's when I switched to electronic media and I learned audio production and editing. And I made like a radio documentary as a project. And I learned like television studio work. This was so long ago, I could not do some of these things now. Film production type things. And so I'd switched into that. So that was being behind the camera. But at the same time, I was really wrestling with, is that really where I wanted to be? Or do I want to be able to do both? I thought for a while, maybe I'll make documentaries. That could be cool. But always at the same time, I was taking theater classes. So I minored in theater, and I ended up having I did AP classes in high school. And so I came into college as a sophomore, credits wise. So I had a bunch of kind of like free hours that I could fill with whatever I wanted, because a lot of those requirements were already met based on some classes I took in high school. So I was like, well, I can just take a bunch of theater classes. So I basically took enough theater credits to have a degree in theater. I just didn't take them in the right classes to qualify for the degree. So I still ended up doing all of those theater classes. And at that point, this might be a segue, where I really went into college thinking, okay, freshman year, I'll just do a play. There's a play that only freshmen can audition for. That'll make it more likely I'll actually get cast. I'll do that. That'll be fun, whatever. And I did that, and I got cast, and I loved it so much. And I was like, I really thought I would do this and then just like kind of be done. But I am not done with this. I love it so much. And I realized more and more through college that if I wasn't acting, I wasn't happy. And that's when I really had to kind of confront within myself the fact that I needed to stop pretending like I could be happy doing other things, that I really needed to focus on trying to figure out how to make performing a part of my life, professionally or otherwise, and it's still true. If I go a long stretch of time without acting anything, I get really like antsy and anxious and like cranky. I get kind of not fun to be around. And I realized like I need to be doing something. I am not a happy person without this in my life.
Yeah, because that's just inherently part of you. That's inherently your part of makeup. So after college, then, what was the gap of time in between North Carolina, or where did you go to school?
Mm-hmm. I went to Appalachian State University in Boone, North Carolina.
Oh, there you go. All right. So you stayed in North Carolina. So between that and before you left for California, how long of a time was there a gap?
It's about 2.5 years or so. I went back to Charlotte, and I was really lucky. I moved back in with my parents to save some money. And I was really lucky that, one, they allowed me to do that. And two, that I have a good enough relationship with my parents that it wasn't like contentious. And I basically used the opportunity to live at home and then get whatever jobs I possibly could to save up money, because I knew I wanted to move somewhere else. I just didn't know where. So I spent those 2 years doing a lot of theater in the Charlotte area, getting a lot of that experience under my belt. I started teaching for a children's theater, which was amazing, a really good opportunity. You know, I worked for a birthday party company. There's anything I could get paid to do. I worked at a coffee shop, but I tried to like find work that allowed me to sort of perform or be involved in the theater, and just like saved everything. And then auditioned for grad school twice to go for acting. My acting MFA, I did not get in. And then I was like, okay, I got to leave here. Where am I going to go? Probably not New York. So maybe Chicago. There's theater in Chicago, or LA. And a friend of mine was like, you know what? You're young. You're more likely to like put up with more things than if you wait till you're older. So maybe you should go to LA now while you're willing to deal with more BS. And then later you could always go somewhere else. And I was like, that's a good point. So. Right.
So let me ask you about dealing with the BS then. No, because I really want to know, because of course, everybody going to LA, I'm not going to say everybody, but, you know, always have this dream. I'm going to be the next big, actor, actress, this and that. I'm great. I have training. I'm ready, this and that. However, you do have to, as you were in college, right, have that realistic side, say, oh, but the reality. So heading out there, say on your drive flight, whatever it was, what was going through your head and how were the scales tipping about that?
Wow. It was quite the decision to make. I had never been to Los Angeles ever before I moved here. I took a road trip, so I drove out, which was an amazing experience. I drove kind of down through the Southwest and over. It took like 13 days maybe to do it, and it was amazing. When we drove into LA, I'd never been here before. I'm like stuck in traffic on the 101. I'm like freaking out. I don't know where I'm going. You know, I'm like people everywhere. I almost have this like panic attack because I'm like, we're eating dinner at a California pizza kitchen. And I'm like, all these waiters are out of work actors. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? You know? And I knew like 2 people here. Mm-hmm. Who I luckily are really wonderful. And we're like, just sleep on our couch for a couple of weeks. You'll find your footing. You'll find a place to rent. It'll be okay. And I came in, I had a game plan and that helped. So I had taken an acting class right before I moved out here, taught by someone who had been in Los Angeles for a really long time. So I kind of met with him before I moved and like made a game plan. He's like, okay, first thing you're going to want to do is try and set up meetings with some agents. Here's, some ones that, do your research, plan people to reach out to, take meetings, see if you can start to get, representation, find classes, see if you can get into some classes, do, some things that I knew like, okay, I have a plan when I first get here, something to focus on that won't be how lonely I am and how scary it is. So I did that and I focused on that plan and I started taking meetings and I started trying to get into class and occasionally picking up little day jobs here and there, being a production assistant for just the day, on a set or in someone's production office to try and like bring in a little money, but really focusing on trying to lay the groundwork for relationships with people out here to start trying to knock on doors, basically. And I think that helped, having that game plan and feeling like I was being productive in that way. And then at the same time, I auditioned for a lot of student films because I didn't have a ton on my resume that meant anything to anyone out here. They don't really care about my North Carolina theater. So I did a lot of student films and that made me feel like, I'm acting. I'm doing more acting here than I was doing back home because I'm in 3 student films for USC this month. And so that really started helping me get more confident. And from there, it just kind of like slowly, the kinds of auditions I was going on were a little more professional and a little more professional, a little more professional as I went until I eventually booked the job that got me into the union. And then all the work dried up. No.
Okay, so before you get to that job that you said got you into the union, mm-hmm. How is it the process for an agent willing to say, hey, okay, this person has something, I'm going to work for them. So in order to get somebody to promote Paula, mm-hmm. like what's that process to get that person to do that for you?
It's a mystery, Tim, let me tell you. It's tricky. And, the thing is like everyone's journey out here is different. And I think a lot of people come out here and go, oh, well, this is all you need to do to get an agent, or it's so easy to get a commercial agent, or it's so easy to do this, or make sure, but everyone's story and journey is different. And it takes people different amounts of time to do different things. So really it's about, and everything changes so much. Like when I first came out here, the way you went about trying to get an agent, I feel like isn't really the way you do it now, but you're basically trying to get your foot in the door to an agent's office. And that can be done through, someone who they already represent. And so your friend recommends you to them and says, hey, you should check out my other friend. They're looking for an agent. I think you'll like them. Take a meeting with them. And maybe you get a meeting that way. Or maybe you just blindly mail your headshot and resume to them and they like the way you look. And so then they want to take a meeting with you. Or maybe a teacher of a class that you're in knows the agent and thinks that you would be a good fit and might introduce you that way. So first it's about trying to get them to notice you. And that's with your resume, your headshots, your reel of all of your work. And then if they like the way you look, then they might go, okay, well, let me see. Do I like how they act? Do I like their personality? Do I think I could get them auditions? Is there someone I already represent who would go out for the same parts as them? Because if so, I probably don't want them both on my roster. It's complicated. And
it sounds like it. Yeah, there's a lot of decisions going into that. So, okay, yeah, so that's some good insight, because it's really interesting to find out all those behind the scene things. Because again, I just want to reiterate to a lot of people watching, there's a lot of hard work behind the scenes. So there's a lot of stuff you have to go through. So you said you got the first part that got you into the union. So obviously, inherently, you're implying that there's sort of a level. So you were at a certain level doing student films, doing all these things, but then you were able to kind of get up into the next level. So so first of all, what was that thing that got you into the level? And then all of a sudden, what was being on that next level like?
Not that different, really. It's not as different as you want it to be, like a magic light switch that flips. Okay. And you're suddenly like, yeah, everyone's knocking on my door because I'm SAG-AFTRA. And people are like, yeah, you and like half the town. So, right. You know, so after a couple of years of being, I think it was 5 years of being here, and doing some non-union work and student films and taking classes and meeting casting directors, I had a manager, and the manager helped me get this audition. No, you know what? I'm not to say anything bad about my manager. I got myself that audition because I had met the casting director. And the casting director remembered me. See, this is how it works. A year later, after I met her, she remembered me. She was casting a specific role. Like, the role started bigger than it ended up. It ended up being 3 lines, but it was meant to be a couple of scenes. And remembered me and reached out to my manager to be like, "Hey, I want Paula to come in and audition for this part."
Okay. So I'm sorry. I need to stop because you said something that's really intriguing to me before we get to this point, and I wrote a note here, so I'm going to get back to it.
Yeah.
And please don't take this the wrong way, but I think you'll know what I'm asking.
Okay.
What was your manager managing? You know what I mean?
Question, no.
No, but you know
Hi, new manager, if you're watching.
No, because I mean, according to what you were like doing student films, you were doing. So I'm just wondering, really, like legitimately, what was he managing? Like, or he or she? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So my manager it's a team of 2, my management company. And there is a he and a she. So what they're doing is, one, trying to help you. A manager kind of has an overall view of your career. In a way, an agent is just specifically trying to get you specific jobs in the field that they represent you. So they might represent you for just commercials, or they might represent you for just TV and film, or they might represent you for theater. And they just want to get you jobs, basically. Now, a manager is looking at the whole of your career and trying to help you on that path and how to guide your overall career. And so part of that includes trying to help you get into audition rooms, and also trying to help you meet like I don't have a theatrical agent right now. Theatrical agents for TV and film. So my manager helps me by trying to connect me with a theatrical agent that they might know, that they're like, oh, I bet you two might be a good fit. Let me see if I can get a meeting set up for you. So at the time, my manager was just trying to help me get into more legit audition rooms than just student films, which I can kind of get on my own. Because I don't have access to the audition notices for union work. Only managers and agents have access to those things. And so they they submit you in the hopes that a casting director will look at the submission and go, yes, I want this person to come in and audition. So that's what my manager was doing. Okay. And still does.
All right. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So thanks for clarifying that for me.
Sure.
So you said it was with 3 lines. That's the part we were up to, about 3 lines for this part. So let's pick up that from there.
Yeah. So I went and auditioned for this part. I went to the Paramount lot. which was very cool. And actually auditioned for 2 parts. And it was a thing where like we had a whole scene to learn for the audition. And then we got to the audition and they came out and we're like, ooh, actually they just rewrote the part. So here's your new scene. And that's when we're like, oh, all the jokes went away. This character had jokes and now the character just has 3 lines of exposition. Cool. And it was like, okay, let me relearn this really quick. Went in and auditioned and booked it, amazingly enough, somehow.
Okay, but hold on a second. I want to, because again, there's these sort of images that a lot of lay people like me have. So when you walked into the audition room, were there like 20 other Paula Deming looking ladies? You know what I mean?
They were all in the hallway outside of the audition room.
Okay. But
and
is that what it's like, really?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes you do. You look around and you're like, wow, this is just a room. This is a hallway of people waiting who are literally me. Who knows? And sometimes you go in and you're like, wow, everyone's really different. What do they want? And both things are equally like disconcerting. Because sometimes it's like, well, if they want someone who looks like me, they're probably going to book that person because I recognize them from a TV show. So that's probably who's going to get it. Or you go, if everyone looks different from you, you're like, huh, well, I could do my best, but they might just decide that who I am isn't what they want for the role at all. But in this case, people were kind of like, we were auditioning for the role of a main character's daughter. Okay. So in that case, everyone sort of looks semi the same because you need to look kind of related. So I did that. And then you all wait near each other. You're all just like, cool, 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 cool. This is all my competition. And then they come out and they call you by your name when it's your turn. And you go into the room. And in this case, it was just the casting director and the casting assistant. So it was just those 2 people. And they have a little camcorder and they put you on tape. So they just record you reading this audition scene with one of them. And they're usually off camera. So you're the only person on camera. And then depending on the scene and how many lines and the casting director, you might do it more than once. Usually if it's just 1 line, they'll have you do it 2 or 3 times because it's just 1 line. And I think I did this one twice because I think they had me do it and then they gave me some redirection. Like, well, try it a little different. Try it this way instead. And I did that. And then they thanked me and I left. So I was there for probably about 5 minutes.
But you eventually did get the part.
I did get the part. Yeah, I booked it. And it shot on my birthday. So it's the best birthday. Nice. And I was very nervous because it was my first TV job. 3 lines. I was going to be in a scene with 2 recognizable actors. And I was like, it was very cool though. And everyone was super nice.
So let me ask you then, okay, now you, and again, don't take this the wrong way. You've had a lot of training. You were in school, but and what I mean is you're not technically sort of a professional, right? In a sense, but all of a sudden now you are in a professional setting, like you said, with recognized actors, actresses, whatever, you got all this kind of stuff. So how are you able to maintain your professionalism in a new setting that you may have not been able to hold your adrenaline? You know what I mean? And of course, your professional training kicked in and you were able to do it, right? But was it very hard at that moment?
I luckily had luckily everyone who was a regular member of the cast of this television show was incredibly nice. So I interacted with a few of them in the makeup trailer. And they were super, super nice. So that helped like immediately because I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to be like, oh, this is just like someone who's here for the day. They only have 3 lines. We don't even need to pay attention to them. But instead, they were like, oh my gosh, you're going to play XYZ character? Oh, this is so exciting. Welcome. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've seen you in a movie and you're saying hi to me and you're welcoming me here. And you're treating me like an equal. And that helped. So when everyone around me treated me like an equal performer, it helped make me feel like I was one. And then I just really was like, your acting starts from the moment you get on set. Like you act like you know what you're doing. It's in my greatest role today, pretending like I do this all the time. No big deal. 3 lines on this TV show. Do it in my sleep. And I also, in my scene with me was another person who was just there for like the day, who had a little more experienced than me, had done more TV shows, and he was really, really nice and like talked to me a lot about like, okay, it's probably going to go like this, or, you know, this is going to happen now. And so he was really helpful in like knowing that it was my first TV show booking and kind of helping guide me through the process a little. And so that helped as well. Everyone on set was very, very nice, and that helped.
Okay. So now during your scene, do you just act? And what I mean by that is, are you thinking, am I saying this right? Are they saying this right? Like this, I mean, or do you just do your thing?
In an ideal world, you're just doing your thing. If you're prepared enough and you know it well enough and you can kind of calm down and throw the other stuff away, you are just doing your thing and you're not worried so much about if it's coming out right. When things aren't going as well, you can get more a little caught up in your brain about like, did that sound right? Oh, I don't know. And that's usually not like a great sign, but it does sometimes happen. In this scenario, because I knew that from classes I had taken and workshops I had done, I knew that like, hey, you're a day player. You have 3 lines. Your job is to like get it right and get out of there because they don't have time to direct you. They're going to be busy directing the main cast who are there all the time. You need to just, the way you did the performance in the audition is what booked you the job. Just do it that way. And so I really focus on like, okay, how did I say these lines in the audition? That's how I'm going to try and do them right now. And that seemed to go well. I didn't get like, we shot my scene pretty quickly. No, the director did not seem to get mad at me. I wasn't cut from the episode.
Okay.
So that's what I tried to focus on in that particular scenario.
Okay. Now, so the old saying is success is when preparation meets opportunity, and you have prepared, you have your opportunity. Were you like really up for the moment? Like were you set and said, yes, I'm ready for this. This is what I've been working for.
I think so. I think so. I mean, looking back, like I look at my scene now and I'm like, well, I maybe could have done this. I can tell like I've got some nerves watching it, but I know me. But I think otherwise, like, I think I was ready. And I'm still ready. I'm ready for more.
Yeah, there you go.
Just send it my way, please.
Right.
And the more you do it, I mean, this is where the preparation comes in. The more you do it, the more ready you feel.
Correct.
And so, when I first came out here, I was really nervous about those student film auditions. And then I was doing so many of them that they were like old hat, like whatever, it's just another student film audition. And then I'd go get up to the next level. Oh, this is a little independent film. Now I'm really nervous because it's like the next step up in professionalism. And then I did that a bunch and that became normal. And then it was like, ooh, now I'm going in for actual commercial auditions or actual television auditions. And then it's like, at first, you're really nervous about that. And then you're like, okay, well, I've now done 50 of these. So now it's just normal. And as the same thing applies to like booking as well. The more you do it, the more it just becomes like, okay, well, I've done this. I know how it's going to go. And I can like settle in more for it.
Right. So since you were talking about, auditions and, all this kind of stuff. So being a professional actor now in Los Angeles, you've got your the YouTube show, you do podcasts, you're still acting, all this kind of stuff. Like, what is a typical, I don't want to just say day, but let's just say month, like for a professional actor in Los Angeles? Like just a rough figures, like do you go on a lot of auditions? Do you go on a lot of this? Like, what is just your life like?
This is going to sound like a cop-out, but truly there is no typical month. And everyone would answer this question a little bit differently, I think, because some months it's really busy and I get, I might, for me, where I'm at in my career, I might get like 3 or 4 auditions in a month, and that's pretty good. For other people, that would be very slow. For someone who's working auditioning a lot, they might have, especially during like pilot season, which does that even exist anymore? They might be doing, 3 a day, 2 days a week, they have 3 auditions in a day. So it really depends on the person and where they're at in their career and the kinds of roles they audition for. And so it really varies. I usually will have like a grouping. So like 2 weeks ago, I had like in 2 days, I had 2 auditions. And they came up and I usually get them in little clusters like that. If they're going to come up, I'm going to all of a sudden have 3 or 4 I need to do all at once. And then I might have 3 weeks go by and then get, a couple more. And that's just kind of how my career kind of goes and what's typical for me, but that's not necessarily what's true for everyone. And there are some actors who would hear me say that and go, "Oof, that's nothing. Wow, your career is not going well. You should be getting more auditions." And there are some actors who would hear that and be like, "Wow, that sounds great. I wish I could get 1 audition a month," So it really varies. It's just so and that's one of the things that's tricky, I think, about being an actor specifically is there's no it's not like being a doctor where you're like, okay, first you go to pre-med and then you go to medical school and then you do your residency and then you do this and then you do this and now you're a doctor. It's like there is no step-by-step path for this.
Yeah, and since it's varied so much, because you have mentioned both an agent and a manager, are they strictly on a sort of commission basis? Like they can't make money unless you make money, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So they only make a percentage of anything I make from my acting work, which is an incentive for them to try and pitch me to get into audition rooms so that I will have the opportunity to book because it's the only way they make money from me.
Right.
Yeah.
So as far as that goes, because I don't know exactly how it ties into, say, like Things Are Dicey or any project solo you do. So how married, I don't know why I keep using that word, but it's just so normal, or how tied to you, tethered, I guess would be maybe a better word, to your manager or agent? Like how much freedom do you have to do your own thing, or do they get like a piece of everything? How does that relationship work?
It kind of depends on either your contract with your reps. So it technically any professional acting work that I'm doing, they get a percentage of. Now, Things Get Dicey is self-produced and it's my own thing, and that's really separate. And don't really get paid to do it either. So I've had some sponsored episodes, but it's not exactly the same. And so that is a separate thing. But other acting work that I do, even if it's something that I got for myself in some way, they do get a small piece of a small percentage of whatever I got paid for that.
Okay.
Yeah, but Things Get Dicey and a lot of my gaming stuff is separate from the kind of Hollywood side of my acting things. There may come a time where they're more one thing and everything kind of gets covered under one umbrella, but right now they're kind of separate things.
Okay. Well, Paula, I must say it's been absolutely fantastic spending time with you. I mean, I could talk to you for so much more. Yeah, it's been really great. I've learned so much, and you're so wonderful. But what I'd really like to do now is I'd really like to close by letting the people know what you have up and coming, what they can expect. I'll make sure I put this up there. Make sure you go to YouTube, paulademing.com, to see her channel. But yeah, just let us know how we can see more of and get more of Paula Deming.
Yeah, so right now we are in between Things Get Dicey seasons. We just wrapped up our season 3, which means that we are in process of writing new scripts and getting ready for new production. We'll probably come out with a couple things this year, maybe something for Halloween, maybe something for the holidays. And then at the start of the year, we will be back next year, we'll be back in earnest on regular episodes. So keep an eye out for that. If you want to see me gaming every week, I play games on GenCon TV's Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/GenCon TV. I stream board games using Tabletopia, Tabletop Simulator, with my very good friend Matthew Jude, who you may or may not be familiar with. He was on Board Game Breakfast for the Dice Tower for a long time. He's a part of This Game is Broken. And we play board games together on Wednesdays over on the GenCon TV Twitch channel, which I've just now said like 5 times. I hope you remember it. It's GenCon TV Twitch channel. That's embedded in your brain now. I also am on a podcast about board games that you can listen to. It is called This Game is Broken, and it is a board game panel show quiz. It's very focused on comedy that you can listen to. That is part of the Dice Tower Network. And non-gaming related, my other podcast is called Death by Monsters. It is a podcast all about monsters, mysteries, and the unknown. So it's a paranormal comedy podcast. It is not family friendly. You should know it's PG-13.
Wait, are you into cryptozoology?
I am a skeptic.
Oh, because I love all that kind of stuff. I watch Ancient Aliens all the time.
You should listen to our podcast because it's all about me trying to be convinced. Not just me, my other two hosts, Matthew Jude again, and also Nick Murphy, who you might know from the Brothers Murph.
Yes,
are the other two hosts of Death by Monsters, and Matthew usually presents to us his case for like Bigfoot, and then Nick and I are appropriate levels of skeptical. Yeah, so if that sounds like a thing, if you like hauntings or cryptids or anything like that, check that out. And those are the main things. I also do it. I'll keep talking. I just because I have this mug today, I make a audio drama podcast. So it's a fiction podcast called Deck the Halls with Matrimony. It's basically a Hallmark Christmas Channel movie for your ears. So you can just Google that if you wanted to listen to me do some voice acting. I'm going to stop there. I do too many things.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. That's quite all right because you've got a tremendous fan base. You are extremely talented. Your product, the stuff you put out is wonderful. So I mean, we can always get more of Paula Deming, whatever she does. So that's fantastic. So Paula, don't go away. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll be right back with you. I'm just going to close out the show, but thank you again for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
This has been so fun to just talk about myself for an hour.
Yes, and you know the thing about it is I feel kind of bad. Well, I don't feel bad because this is what I really want to do with this series is get to know people other than how we know you, right? Because that's how a lot of gamers know you is just by gaming and board gaming, but we don't really know much about you. So we got to learn a lot about you, which was really nice. So thanks again for joining me, and I'll be right back with you, all right?
Thank you.
Well, there you go, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for another episode of Meepleville Meets. We got to learn so much about Paula Deming, and please make sure you go check out YouTube/Paula Deming to do that. She's got the podcast. She's got a whole bunch of things, but you can all find that information on either Twitter or YouTube or any of her social media channels. And I just got to recommend Things Get Dicey again because it is really, really so refreshing, so nice to see the sketch comedy with something we all love, and that being board games. Well, thank you again for joining me, and I'll see you again soon for another episode of Meepleville Meets.